Welcome to a very special edition of the Bulldog podcast, Dead Air. This edition is very special indeed. Not only is it our very first podcast, but it is also the Christmas edition. Merry Christmas with extra tinsel and pigs in blankets.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
I am as pleased as Christmas pudding to be helping you on your English learning journey. Now, let's introduce my fine young stallions and fillies that I have in the stable with me this evening. Before that, I am Merrick, the deep chocolatey voice of narration, and I am a 7-foot-tall Englishman and from Kent. I have my very own beard, and I like to sing! Who's next?
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm representing the minority here. The Scottish rose between two English thorns.
Ah, did you know I can do a very good Scottish accent?
No, you can't.
Please, no.
don't do that.
Excuse me!
Please. No.
Could you tell me where I can purchase some haggis?
Moving on.
Crashing on quickly.
Yeah, I like dancing and making cakes. How about you, Ben, the other thorn?
Well, I do very good Scottish accents, as you just heard. I'm very happy to be here celebrating Christmas with the two of you. A little bit about myself, let's see. I am from London, or the Big Smoke, as no one has ever referred to it. I play guitar, and one of my favourite pastimes is eating the divine food Spain has to offer. But I do miss a good pie.
Pie.
Yes, pie.
3.14.
Yeah, that's right.
Love
Yeah.
those digits.
Yes, if you're wondering what on earth pie is, you can see the vocabulary sheet associated with this program, which provides you with some handy definitions of some of the expressions you'll hear us using this evening. Also, a transcript is available. Ben promises me it's available. It's his job to type it up. And you can follow our voices on this most festive of occasions.
Yep, all typed up and ready to be read. Today's topic is surely a favourite. It's a festival that is celebrated very differently across the world and from home to home. Before we start, I have a very interesting question for you both.
I am intrigued. Do go on, dear boy.
Well, one of my favourite Christmas traditions is the Christmas cracker, something that we don't really have here in Spain.
Yeah, what a shame. Christmas just isn't Christmas without some crackers.
Absolutely correct, Claire, and thank you for your opinion. In my home, we have a cracker next to our plate, and before we eat, we pull them with the person next to us. A cracker is a long cardboard tube decorated with tinsel and bright colours. Inside, there is a strip of card with a small explosive. When you pull it, it explodes. Not enough to blow your arm off, just enough to go bang. When the tube opens, inside, you have a paper crown. In my house, we usually wear these while we're eating. There's also a piece of paper with a terrible joke on it. And a surprise, which varies in quality depending on how much you pay for the crackers. Usually, it's one of the following things: a magnifying glass, a pencil, a plastic tape measure, or something equally underwhelming. We have a drawer full of these useless items at home.
You know, I read about a deluxe version of crackers that contains luxury items like mobile phones. Ring a bell?
Very fancy. I wonder what the Kardashians have in their crackers.
I should imagine they have some bling. Anyway, in my home, we usually keep the jokes till after we've eaten. So we stuff ourselves with, stuffing, pigs in blankets, turkey, there's some gravy, lots of gravy, lashings of gravy, some mashed potatoes, Brussels sprouts. Shall I go on? I will go on.
Please don't forget the roast potatoes in goose fat.
Roast potatoes
you
in
can't
goose
forget
fat.
those.
Oh, fantastic. Maybe some gammon, some glazed parsnips, possibly mashed swede, carrots, peas, cranberry sauce, bit of bread sauce, and I think I'm going to stop there because I'm getting incredibly hungry.
Well, Christmas is all about overindulgence.
Absolutely right. We eat everything until we have to loosen our belts. Then we tell each other our terrible jokes. I'm going to give you an example of a terrible joke right now, and I do promise that you will laugh. Okay, are you ready? Prepare yourselves.
Yep, ready.
Yeah, here you go.
What cheese do you use to get a bear out of his cave?
I don't know.
I don't know, Ben.
What
cheese do you use
to get a bear out of his cave?
Camembert.
Oh.
Exactly.
Ba-dum-tsh.
The worse the joke, the better the joke.
Oh, grammar quantum.
We have a very dry sense of humour in England.
It's pretty dry up in Scotland too, despite the rain. But Ben, didn't you have a question?
Yes, sorry, I got distracted by the thought of delicious Christmas dinner. Okay, so Christmas crackers. That tradition that unites us all with paper hats and bad jokes. First, a little history for you, ladies and gentlemen. Christmas crackers were invented sometime between 1845 and 1850 by a London sweetmaker called Tom Smith, a fine English name.
Upstanding English name.
Tom had been inspired by the French bonbon sweets, which came in decorative, colourful paper and had a little piece of paper inside with a motto or a riddle.
How quaintly Francais.
Absolutely. Tom wanted to introduce these delightful French delicacies to the people of England, but stubborn as they were, they just weren't interested. Anyway, unperturbed, one night he was sat in front of his log fire, listening to its pops and cracks, and a thought came to him. What if he could combine the popping and cracking of his fire with his sweets?
Cracking idea.
Indeed. Crackers were originally called Cossacks. This name was thought to come from the Russian Cossack soldiers who had a reputation for riding their horses and firing their guns into the air. Very Russian. When Tom died, his 3 sons took over the family business and started to adapt the business to keep up with the times. They introduced hats and toys and started making themed crackers, including a very special cracker, a millionaire's cracker, which contained a silver box with a piece of silver or gold jewellery inside. So when you mentioned those luxury crackers before, Claire, you were absolutely right.
I knew I'd heard about it somewhere. Well, I still have one question, Ben.
Do go on.
When are you going to ask your question?
Now, patience, please. Okay, so, are you ready for my question?
No.
Yeah.
Are you ready for my question?
Sorry, we talked to me.
Yes,
I
Ben.
see that you've both slipped into a
Christmas coma.
Christmas coma.
It's all that overindulgence.
It's probably the Christmas dinner, the log fire, the jingles in the
The
background.
carolers at the door.
Okay, here is my question, as
Want a mince
promised.
pie?
How much do you think the world's most expensive crackers cost? Drum roll, please. Thank you. A. £150,000. B. £1 million. Or C. A shocking £4 million. Give me your answers now, please, and the lucky winner will take home this prize.
Listeners, the prize is a photo of Ben.
It is signed.
Woo!
Answers, please. Claire, what do you think? A, B, or C?
I don't know. Let me think. 4 million does seem like an awful lot for a cracker.
Well, you
Is it just one?
say expensive crackers. I mean, is it just the one cracker, or are we talking like a family set?
This is a box of luxury crackers.
Yeah, but how many luxury crackers are in a box of luxury crackers?
There would
Is it
be-
a 10 box, a
there
10,
would be-
12 deck.
Is an interesting question, and you can actually choose how many crackers you have in the box depending on how rich you are. But the price is the same.
Is it per cracker? Is that what you're saying? The price is per cracker or for the set?
Or is it like a hamper of crackers?
The price is divided amongst your guests. So you have the value, and then you have the number of crackers as you have guests I forgot how to explain things there for a second.
It's all about Christmas overindulgence.
Yeah.
You have.
I do believe 4 million is an absurd number to pay for a trinket gift for somebody at a party. But then I don't live in that kind of world. I'm 1 million. I don't know.
Okay, you're going for B, £1 million.
150,000 is also pretty absurd, but rich people, it's nothing. So yeah, I go with Merrick. Say 1 million.
Okay, well, I know whose houses I'm visiting at Christmas. So you're both saying B, £1 million.
You're not invited to my house.
I will force my way in.
Like Santa Claus down the chimney.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You can't keep me out. You know this already.
Okay. Well, considering we are talking about Christmas, it is Christmas after all. Does anybody here want to share with the listeners what their typical family Christmas experience consists of?
I have, in the last few years, I've come to realise that my family are not normal. I mean that generally speaking, and specifically at Christmas. I thought that the things we did at Christmas were universal, but it turns out they're not, because...
So what do you do?
Yeah.
Well,
that's so unique.
What, do you have Chinese or something?
We do a couple of things that I went to a friend's house to celebrate Christmas, and it got to the point that we would usually do these things, and they didn't do it, and I was like, well, why aren't we doing this thing that everybody does? Turns out it's not for everyone. I will explain.
Yes, please do.
We do two things. We have a box full of masks. For
What kind of
we have a box full of masks of people. That one is a sailor, one's an old woman, one's like a.
Do you then go out and rob a bank or something?
No, we just sit there in our masks,
This is intriguing.
laughing at each other. Usually because we're full of Christmas dinner and Christmas cheer and alcohol. So we do the mask thing, and we also do spoon hanging.
On your nose.
So we
Under
take
the mask or on the mask?
This is a separate event.
Are there prizes for the best spoon hanger?
Sign photos of
the
Ben.
The prize is number one, as Merrick said, a signed photo of me, and number two, just pride in your own ability to hang a spoon from your nose. It's challenging for me because I have a very small, round nose. So when I do succeed in hanging my spoon, it's kind of against nature, if anything.
Are you suggesting that the genetic forbearance of your nose does not apply to the rest of your family?
No, we've all got freakishly round, small noses. So we all sit there trying to do something that is physically impossible, basically.
Imagine Tiny Tim peering through the window at Ben's family Christmas.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you should.
You think he'd be a little confused.
He might have considered his poor house Victorian Christmas quite delightful.
We had no idea we were strange, but then there was a pattern emerging. My sister's boyfriends started breaking up with her just after Christmas every year, and we managed to connect the dots.
Well, when I was asking about, let's moving swiftly on. Claire, tell me a little bit about what Christmas Day is like in your house. I mean, the first thing we should probably explain to the Spanish is that when we say Christmas Day, we mean the 25th of December.
No Three Kings nonsense in England.
Well, no, precisely. That's the day that the Christmas decorations come down. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, Ben. I was going to say that our big meal, when we talk about Christmas dinner, it is lunch come dinner on the 25th, whereas in Spanish it's all about the evening of the 24th. And then, in my experience with my Spanish wife's family, presents are done almost precisely on midnight on Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day's a bit of a disappointment for me, quite frankly.
I have a very important question related to what you were talking about there, in terms of Christmas presents. Okay,
yeah.
So this is something that divides families, much like Nesquik and Colacao in Spain. Is which side do you choose? Do you open your presents first thing in the morning?
Yeah.
Do you leap out of bed and unwrap them together as a family under the tree as the light of the sun is creeping over the horizon, or do you wait all day so you've got something to look forward to?
Now, you see, I'm intrigued that you've asked me this, Ben, and I will hold on to that for a moment. I want to hear Claire's summary of Christmas Day in her house first, and I will come back to that.
Well, I feel that Christmas days changed a lot as we got older. When we were kids, it was a very traditional Christmas.
What does that mean, a traditional Christmas?
So the kids would hang their stocking at the foot of the bed, and then go to bed way earlier than you would ever do for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I remember that when I was a kid.
I remember being forced to go to sleep.
I remember trying to stay awake to see if I could see Santa.
Yeah, I remember one year hiding a torch under my pillow.
And then obviously, nicking a little bit of the sherry.
Yep. I think the early bedtime is actually a tactic. It's a technique by adults. They put you to bed early
so they can finish doing the Santa subsidiary duties that they don't tell the kids about.
There is that. That's where your brothers and sisters come from.
As I was saying, the kids would go to bed insanely early, but before doing so, they'd hang their stocking at the end of the bed, and we would leave our milk.
Milk in
in my house, milk.
Who's the milk for?
Good Presbyterian upbringing.
It's probably because my dad didn't like whiskey, so we never had any in the house. Milk and cookies and
reindeers don't like milk.
And carrots.
Milk and cookies. Wait a moment.
Finished.
Wait a moment. Milk and cookies. That's very American.
No, it was cookies. When I say cookies, I mean the chocolate chip ones, not like biscuits, like Scottish biscuits. Okay. Sometimes we left shortbread.
Okay. There we go.
And carrots and water for the reindeer.
Absolutely.
And then my sister and I would go to bed, and we'd get up insanely early in the morning.
Very true.
5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and my parents would go crazy and send us back to bed. But we'd find little pieces of carrots all over the carpet.
So you get up insanely early. You discover that Santa and his reindeer had trooped through your bedrooms.
Yeah.
Like some unwanted late night visitor.
Yeah, and invited them.
And we'd open all the presents in the morning.
So no, but would you open the presents in your bedroom?
No, we'd only have the stocking in our bedroom. All the presents would be in the living room.
Okay. So this, dear listener, is basically so far in Claire's house we have reached Christmas morning, the morning of the 25th. In my house, it would be quite a similar setup. We would go to bed relatively early. As I got older, we would stay up later. I discovered that my parents had a tradition of watching a ridiculously scary horror film before they went to bed on Christmas Eve, after they put the kids to bed.
To help them relax after after a day dealing with the children.
This is part of my mum's tradition. She used to watch something. It used to be like the Hammer House stuff on BBC Two at like midnight. But before we went to bed, a tradition in our house was my dad would read the sort of start of the Christmas tale from one of the Gospels. I can't remember which one it was, but it was the one that always started, "At that time, Quinius, the Roman governor, decided to do a census of the people." And it was a running gag in my house that we would never let him finish the first sentence, so he had to keep repeating, "At that time." He would always do "'Twas the night before Christmas."
And all through the house.
Not a creature was stirring.
Not even a mouse.
This, dear listener, is something that all British people obviously know very well. It's a poem about Father Christmas visiting a family. And we would have mince pies, obviously. Mince pies, sherry, and carrots for the reindeer. And obviously we wake up in the morning insanely early as well. And we, in my family, because we are a large brood, we would assemble in a line, and we would go into my parents' bedroom singing a Christmas carol. And if it was too early, my father would just rumble saying, "Go back to bed." And we'd wait for another 2 hours or so, rattling these boxes, going, "What is it? What is it?" And we would then open the Christmas presents from Father Christmas in the morning, all together as a family, in my mum and dad's bedroom. But not the presents under the tree. That comes later, and was a source of much consternation for my Spanish wife when she came to spend Christmas with us. Ben, so is that similar to your routine, or do you guys just go down, put masks on your face, and drink champagne?
all of that, but we don't have champagne. We just go straight for the whiskey. When I was younger, it was more similar to Claire's experience. We'd have a stocking at the end of my bed, which at some point I would try so hard to stay up all night and catch Saint Nick at it, creeping in, filling my stocking with his wares. But I never managed it. And I'd always wake up at some point in the morning, usually around 5 or 6, insanely early, you might say.
Early.
Yeah.
And there would just be a big bulging stocking at the end of my bed, and I wasn't allowed to touch it because, it was 5 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah, exactly.
and my parents were sleeping. So I'd creep into my sister's room and say, "Are you awake?" And she'd say, "Yes." And I'd say, "He's been." And she'd say, "I know." And we'd continue in that fashion until we were allowed to communicate with our parents.
So
About 2 hours later.
yeah, I mean, so did you two would go downstairs into the front room arena or
Yeah, we
what?
bothered a dog, put some antlers on him, chase him around.
But then did you do the Christmas presents under the tree in the morning then?
We would tear our presents apart, and my dad would sit stoically next to his stack of presents and wait until everyone had opened all their presents, and then he would really, really slowly peel the wrapping off of his present, and we were forced to watch.
I get that. So
Yeah.
Claire,
Christmas torture.
Your morning event was just Christmas presents from Santa Claus or Father Christmas, yeah?
Well, both from Santa Claus and from my parents, because
Oh, okay.
we had a big present from Santa Claus, the main event, and then we'd have some smaller ones, normally pajamas or socks. Or something from
Yeah.
our parents.
And if you were naughty, what happened if you were naughty that year? Did you get any kind of forfeit prize?
I was always a very good girl, Ben,
That's-
so I never had that
Yeah,
problem.
Yeah, I'm
No.
not surprised when it's like
That there was always the threat of a piece of coal, which obviously they do in Spain as well, or an orange. Sometimes I got an orange. They give me the stocking with the orange in first and say, "There you go."
I always got an orange in my stocking. When I was
It was a
older, it
joke
turned into
present.
a chocolate orange, but
that works. Yeah.
Uh.
I miss chocolate orange.
I still get them.
What we would then do in our family was we would have a very specific tradition of a very particular type of breakfast. It would be involving soft, crusty rolls from the local baker my dad had picked up fresh the day before, and we'd all have basically a variety of condiments. Lemon curd, lime jelly. All these different kind of marmalades and jams, and it was obviously, looking back now as an adult, it was obviously a cleaning nightmare for my mum.
Can I
and my
ask you a
dad.
question?
Yeah, go on.
Reading from the Bible, walking in a line into your parents' room, singing carols, having bread and lemon curd. Did you grow up in a Dickensian novel?
It did go through my mind as well.
All of your memories, to me, they sound like they're in black and white.
And then Christmas Day in my house involved lots of waiting, and we'd play with the minor presents, the small little presents, the little trinkets, if you will, that Father Christmas had bought, while Mum and or Dad slaved away preparing the enormous Christmas feast, which would get served around about 4 o'clock in my house.
Yes, routine. Let's talk
Yeah.
about routines.
Okay, and in between that time, it was just waiting, begging to start opening the presents under the tree, all there smiling and winking at us. Bear in mind, my family was massive. It was a massive pile of presents, and it was always very disappointing, as an individual in that setup, because you'd think, wow, look at all that. And really, when you worked it out, about 1/14 of it was for you. So
These are the mental scars that you carry with you into adulthood.
not scars. I love Christmas, me. I absolutely adore it. And yet, so this is what happened for me. Obviously, my Spanish wife had a bit of an issue with Christmas dinner. No, I rephrase that. Christmas Eve dinner, because that's what she was expecting the big moment to be. And she was a bit disappointed because the Spanish are very... how should we put this delicately? The Spanish are very self-important about their food and their cuisine. And she was a little bit disappointed. And watching her over Christmas Day, because in her family they have the presents at midnight on Christmas Eve to Christmas Day, watching her wriggle and gradually get more and more impatient and more cross, like a small girl being denied her Christmas presents. She had to wait, because in my family you have the lunch, and then we have a running gag, a bit like your dad, Ben, sitting there waiting for everybody else to finish and then opening his presents really slowly. We used to have this running gag in my family where my dad would talk about, after you finish Christmas dinner, you have to let your food go down, and we sit around the table and converse, and my dad would make coffee, and we couldn't leave the table till the coffee was drunk. And then he'd always make this joke about, in my family, it's a joke, saying, we have to clean up now. We all have to clean up and tidy up before we sit down and do the presents. And Christmas Day was one of those occasions, special occasions in my family, where we got up from the table and we didn't tidy up. We just left everything in situ and went through to the next room to finally open the presents.
Wow, the wait is over.
And that will start around about 6:30, 6 o'clock in my house.
Well, my family Christmas doesn't really involve waiting. It's more eating. It's just eating, eating.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
And
Eating
more
plays
eating.
a big part.
I mean, when you're in between meals, like my I don't know what happens to my mum over Christmas, but it becomes her mission to make sure that people are either chewing food, swallowing food, or they have food in their hand that is making its way to their face.
I have to say, only a couple of years ago, I went back and did Christmas with my family again, like say with my wife, and it was a little bit different because we're all a bit older now, and we played board games. It was lovely. It was really good fun. We played board games, but my dad did something similar.
Monopoly.
No, we played the one about the trains across Europe. It was great. My dad did something similar. He was bringing out, in a bit of a tapas style, relentless small plates of food that would just emerge. And I'd forgotten how much you could eat. Oh, it was amazing.
I think there's definitely a Christmas switch that gets flipped over Christmas, and you forget how to be full. You forget what your limit is, or you explore your limits rather. Like I eat, and then I realise that I am now finished with eating. I have a sufficient amount of food to nourish my body. Then my mum says, "Turkey sandwich."
Yeah. Now that tends to happen. For us on Boxing Day, the 26th, the day after. There is no food serving time as such. The brood doesn't sit at the table. It's just my mum notions as an open fridge and a buffet of spread on the large table that says get on with it, and it's cold meats and stuff. I have noticed a change in my eating behaviour since I was a child. As children at Christmas, we basically would point blank refuse to have large portions of pudding, Christmas cake and all that jazz, because that would merely delay our time to go and have presents. Now as an adult, and particularly because I don't spend Christmas very often in England, Christmas pudding, brandy butter, rum cream,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah,
Christmas pudding's awesome.
there's a definite tradition of putting alcohol in everything.
yeah.
I mean, in butter, for God's
In
sake.
cream as well.
Yeah, alcohol in butter and cream on an alcohol-soaked piece of dried fruit.
Christmas
and
pudding.
It's just extraordinary.
Christmas pudding is so alcoholic, it is on fire.
It is
Literally on
we do
fire.
that in my family too. We pour some medium value rum and brandy over it, set fire to it, and then see if we can sing through all the verses of "While Shepherds Watch Their Flocks by Night."
Interesting point. Does anyone hide a coin inside their Christmas pudding?
No, too many small mouths.
Yeah.
Claire, do you
Neither.
not have the coin? I thought that was a
No.
Scottish tradition.
No,
We
that's just in general. It's not a Christmas thing.
we don't make the Christmas pudding now. We just buy it, and I think shops are not permitted to put coins into their pudding.
That's
Do
obviously
you
the
have
sensible
a
answer,
Christmas haggis?
No, that's saved for Burns Night on the 29th of January.
Oh,
Well, come to
how
that another time.
disappointing.
Yeah. That's another time. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think we should have one last
If we get to
round of
6
questions.
o'clock, if we get to 6 o'clock in the evening, I said we are just sitting down in our house to start the presents underneath the tree. Like my dad used to sit gradually lower himself onto the floor next to the tree and start to hand out the presents. And he would obviously read the tag out. He'd say, "To Merrick, love from Mummy and Daddy," and everybody had to watch while each person opened every present.
Was there applause?
Well, if you hadn't received one for a while, everyone would go, "Hey!" Yep, and obviously, there's the whole routine. Dad at some point would get socks, or some well-meaning but cheapskate relative would provide him with some aftershave that he was never, ever, ever going to use or want to smell like. There was always, little moments, particularly as well in my family. There's little sort of people would gang up to buy certain gifts or assist each other. So it was lots of squirreling about to get certain gifts for certain people, and there were certain ones that, if you can imagine, my dad's rustling around under the tree, and he'll pick one up, and somebody would go, "Not that one, not yet." And I go, "Oh, okay, put it there." Or the little secret furtive glance from my dad going, "What, this one now?" Yeah, bring that one up now, yeah. And then the other ones where someone would go, "Just let me get the camera." All those kind of routines.
It's all been planned by somebody else.
So then what would happen started when I went to university. We started a tradition in my family where the person in my family who was leaving home or had recently left home would then give out the presents. So the first year when I went to university, I came back home for Christmas, I gave out the presents under the tree. And this tradition carried on and on and on. I then spent several years going to Christmases in other people's houses, witnessing other people's experiences. But nothing beats Christmas under the roof of your parents.
Christmas at home, yeah, it's a very important time for family.
Family.
Yeah.
It's all
That's
about
what it's all
family.
about.
That's what it's all about.
I was going to spend Christmas on my own
I
at
have
home.
Done that. I have done that.
I've never done it. I was going to do it this year, but then I decided to go home and spend it with my family instead because I can't cook.
That's not true.
I was
That's
gonna
not
say,
true.
that's not actually true.
It's
You're not a bad
actually
cook.
true. It's
Yeah.
just I can't cook the quantities and quality of food that my mum can provide over Christmas.
But we have, dear listener, Ben and myself used to live together, and we have managed to provide a kind of pseudo-urban family Christmas for ourselves in Zaragoza, basically sourcing all of the stuff we needed for a proper Christmas dinner.
Alcohol.
What I do remember, interestingly, from that Christmas we spent together in the flat in Zaragoza, was Christmas dinner took even longer to cook than I remembered it ever being done by any of our parents, I'm sure, and then was demolished at a speed I have never seen before in my life. I think I timed it. I think it took us 7 hours to get from beginning to food on plate, and it was less than 20 minutes before every plate was clean.
Okay, we've reached the end of the show, and it is time to find out the answers to the question I asked earlier. How much did the world's most expensive cracker cost? Or crackers, sorry, it was a box of crackers.
Your question is misleading, yes. Okay, never mind. Go for it. Tell us.
You both said B, £1 million. The answer was, in fact, C, a shocking
way.
£4 million.
No,
That is
that can't be right. If that's the crackers, what did they have under the tree?
empty boxes. There's nothing left.
Let me tell you a little bit about the crackers. They contained an Aston Martin, a yacht.
Are you talking real or die-cast models?
These are the keys to an actual Aston Martin, an actual yacht. You couldn't fit a car-filled cracker on the dinner table. There was also a very bling gold watch, a limited edition Faber-Castell pen, and lots of other luxury items that make our paper crowns look a little bit dull.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if the crackers involved a yacht or an Aston Martin and you got a pen?
I was thinking more like a magnifying glass or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Encrusted with diamonds or
Like,
something.
oh, he got an Aston Martin. Where's mine?
Well, again, I was going to say in comparison, I don't know what you guys do in your families, but a big tradition in my family was swapsies. Swapsies on the surprise in the crackers. If you every year wanted that little kind of bottle opener or set of screwdrivers, and you kept getting the little silly magic rings, we could swap over with people. Imagine swapping a pen for an Aston Martin. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
I don't know how that trade would work. One thing that I will say, a tradition in Spain that I do really enjoy, which is, I think it has reflections of the Christmas pudding in England and of the crackers, is roscón. With some people have a coin or a toy inside.
And the broad bean.
And the bean is fantastic because
I've never suffered that, and that would make me ill. I hate broad beans.
But
It's not
you know
good,
what
though.
it represents.
It's hard. It's
I
dried.
I don't care.
You don't have to eat it. You don't eat the bean. Well, you might do by accident, but if you get the bean, you have to buy the roscón next year.
That is the. Oh, I heard you had to pay for that year's roscón. That's what.
Maybe it's that. I don't. People tell me lots of things.
Yeah, I think it's the one from this year,
Yeah.
like the current
tend
year.
not to remember because I don't really listen. But it's cake. I can say it's cake. It is cake, and it's a great tradition.
And on that sweet field bombshell, that roscón is in fact cake. I think it's time to draw our first podcast to a close. We would like to say thank you very much for listening, especially if you've made it to the end.
If you've made it to the end, credit due to you.
Yeah.
extra
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
We
Thank you
will
very much.
encode a secret message at the end, so if you have listened all the way through, get in touch.
You are now fluent in English. Well done.
We hope it has. We hope it's been useful, educational, and enjoyable experience. And if it has, then share us with your friends, your family, and strangers in the street. Make new friends just so you can share it some more.
Yep. Just go to the library, get a book out, write our name inside the book, take it back to the library. There are lots of different ways you can share this podcast.
Okay. I really wouldn't back you up on writing in library books.
Yeah, vandalism. Don't go as
exactly.
far as
Not
vandalism.
as far as that.
Word of mouth is okay.
That is, word of mouth would be excellent.
Just whisper in some of your friends' ears.
If you would like to get in touch with us and ask us to cover any particular topics, or even come and chat with us in our delightful little studio, please email us or get in touch via Twitter or Facebook.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.